Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. Now, you may ask, why am I wearing this hoodie in a video? Well, it's almost Halloween, so it's a little scary outside, but the theme of this video either might excite you or scare you as well. So I'm going with the whole Darth Liege, if you will. Darth Liege. Anyway, so what we're talking about in this video today is we're talking about 5 games that should scare your wallet. 5 big budget games that you need to be aware of coming out in the next couple months because they're going to make waves. Some of the biggest of the big. You know, I'm talking splash. So, teased, peaked, baited enough? Let's do this. Let's take a look at what I think are going to be the 5 that you just need to be aware of coming up. Number 1 should be without introduction, but I'm going to introduce it anyway. This is Sankokushin. If you are not aware of what this is at this point, it's from Axis Mundi Games. This is a next level dungeon crawl campaign persistent world with sort of a feudal Japan type feel and setting. I have done 2 extensive videos just on their updates that they have put out in the past 8 months. Of each individual update for a video, diving into the depth of the mechanics and the interactions and the character dynamics and the persistent world and how it evolves and how you're going to be utilizing things in a KDM, but actually not really KDM-like way. The truth of the matter is here, when you're looking at their website, I mean, the first thing that draws you is the art. But like it says, it's all taking place in this city of Yamashiro. And all of the citizens are going to be intertwined. You're playing over the course of 12 months when you decide how your heroes are going to spend that time, who they meet, how they interact, what relationships they form, and how they evolve as well as their enemies. And that is the unique aspect of things. Now, they say procedural narrative, so it's unique each way. And it's impossible, they say, to experience all of the outcomes because of the different play styles, because of the different interactions, and because your enemies can become your friends. The relationships and the upgrades in terms of the buildings will change, and the relationships of the masters of the city will change. Intelligent enemies, including 10 bosses that are going to have personalities of their own that you may be fighting psychologically, which again is a completely different aspect than we have ever seen, as well as the physical combat stance by stance, action by action. Now, the in-between is also going to be very different, where you are able to take a number of characters that you have and divvy them up with each of them getting a certain amount of actions to peruse during the city. And they're going to be ongoing quests that are sort of going on in the background. So it's not going to be sort of like your Final Fantasy where, you know, if you're going off and doing the side quest tangents, the main quest just kind of sits there, or vice versa, you know, like you're doing the main quest and the side quests are all just kind of stagnant. No, there is going to be a ticking clock on these quests, and you're not going to be forced to do one or the other, but if you don't, there's going to be consequences. It's going to be heavy miniature based, and they're putting out just miniatures right now, so this is really impressive, and that's the other KDM-like experience. And so this is going to be the question. What is the price point going to be? What is it going to entail? And frankly speaking, when are we going to get it? Now, they just hinted on their Facebook update post from like the last week or so that they are going to be having another update sometime soon. And so hopefully we will get a little bit more concrete date of when it's going to launch. But frankly speaking, right now, I wouldn't expect it before Q1 of 2022. If that, I could even see it being pushed to Q2. But this is the highest of the high profile of games that are also somehow simultaneously flying under the radar, because I also feel like I'm one of the few channels talking about this one as well in anticipation of it from that side of things. All in all, it's a completely unique concept with smatterings of influence from the other dungeon crawlers, the other narrative story campaigns, the other persistent worlds, but somehow unique in and of itself. And they're not trying to rush it. I mean, there were reports that it was going to be out early in 2021, and now we're pushing 2022. And like all games like this, I say, I want it when it's ready. So that is Sankokushin, 5 Sacrifices. Next up, and this is going to be a completely different departure, but if you've heard nothing on my upcoming hype videos in terms of things you need to know, you should know that I have been consistently correct in predicting that we are seeing more and more and more ports. Ports from video games, ports from console games, ports now from phone games. And so Slay the Spire is going to be super interesting to see. The designers are super active on the Board Game Geek forums now. They're answering questions about how they are trying to stay true to the game. How are they going to incorporate the things that make Slay the Spire the smash hit on other platforms that it has been translated into the tabletop scene. Again, this has been announced since January of 2021 as initially a spring 2021 launch date. Well, clearly, again, based on the responses on the Board Game Geek forum, there have been just smatterings of information, a few things there. You can check it out if you want. There's just one thread right now. But what the interesting thing is that they've said, look, we're not ready. Look, we're not ready to have it sent out to people. We're not ready for the campaign. The game is not there yet. So again, similarly to Sankokushin, they are, waiting until the time is right, which again, if you're going to do something like this, I mean, that's my biggest problem with some of the other ports. I would love to see some high profile anime ports into games, and we've seen a few, but most of them, let's be frank, have been very lackluster or half baked, if you will, from that side of things. So give me true, give me everything that you are promising. Give me this completely unique, mechanically unmatched deck builder where you can craft your deck, deal with these bizarre creatures, climb the spire, and get massive power until you can finally win. Now, the question is this going to be a self-contained game? Is it going to be something like Aeon's End? Is it going to be something like Aeon's End Legacy or New Age, where you've got a campaign that is progressive, that builds things? How are you going to incorporate the tower climbing aspect of things? Because you're going to have a persistent way of saving then potentially as well too, which again is a blessing or a curse depending on how you feel about those sorts of things. But all in all, I mean, this one is way up there for me as well. I am really going to be interested to see how they do this, because if they can successfully do this, as you've seen with several other games of the same IP video game ilk, there's going to be imitators and copiers down the line. So it's just going to lead to more and more and more, which from our side of things, honestly, I think is a great thing, especially if this is not miniature based, right? We've got enough plastic. If they're making this a deck builder, focus on the cards. The cards, the cards, the cards. So that is Slay the Spire. We'll see when it shows up. Now, next up, we're going to talk about this, and this is going to be the most vague of vaguities at this point. CMON. CMON. Now, nothing is concrete. They made it very clear, if they go over to the last update here, the next campaign will be its 50th. To celebrate the epic milestone, we're doing something extra special. We're partnering with Spin Master early 2022. Not ready to announce it, but keep an eye on the Facebook page for an earth-shattering announcement. What is it going to be? Now, my fear, well, blessing, curse that it is it's going to be another Zombicide iteration. And if that's the case, I mean, I'm only going to buy it maybe to flip it. Just sort of kidding. But if it's not a Zombicide, if it's something unique, because I don't believe Spin Master, if I'm correct here, is not involved in the zombie side of things. And if that is right, the only thing that I know of from that side of things is the X-Men, the Marvel side of things. And now, granted, I really also don't want to see another Marvel United, Marvel X-Men iteration already at this point. Like, I want my X-Men stuff before I'm even going to consider something else from that standpoint. And we're not going to have all of the Wave 2 stuff. I didn't got it all in one wave, but the Wave 2 will not be sent out by early 2022. It just won't be. Just by the nature of everything that's entailing with that. So then the question is, okay, well, if you say it's not going to be Zombicide, and you say it's not going to be the Marvel, what else is it? Now, we just saw He-Man. He-Man. So are we going to see another one of these remakes? Are we going to see Transformers? Are we going to see G.I. Joe? Are we going to see something of that ilk? Thundercats? The 80s comics? Are we going to see something more recent from that side of things? Now, if we go over here to the Spin Master website, we can see sort of what IPs they have at this point. Obviously, the big one that stands out on this page is Batman. Oh, look, right below Batman, DC. Now, could you have a DC United, something like that? That's interesting. Now, there's not a whole lot else out here unless you're looking for Paw Patrol. My kids would be super interested, but I don't think you guys would be. Then they've got Spin Master Games here as well, and they've got Harry Potter. So, again, the question is, we haven't seen any Harry Potter. We haven't really seen any big DC side of things either at this point. So would either of them be contenders? I mean, going back to CMON here, there's no way. There's no information clicking over on the Facebook page right now. They're still putting out occasional Zombicide and Masters of the Universe updates. So, I mean, I would imagine it's going to be a good 2 or 3 months before we see anything concrete. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get a couple hints before the end of the year as well. But, I mean, if you know CMON, if you are looking at it from a CMON side of things, because no matter what they're doing at this point, heavy miniature-wise or not, which they always are, I don't even know why I said that, but it kind of goes with their name, it's going to be pricey, no matter what it is. I mean, we're seeing their all-ins go up and up and up. Masters of the Universe, Marvel United X-Men, the zombie sides, all of them are getting 300 plus, up to 400 now. And the question is, if you're going to budget for these sort of things, how driven are you? Especially if it is one of these other IPs that we have no idea about. That I saw a lot of people commenting like, oh, wow, I went into this because I was a big He-Man fan. Because you're going to have the same argument be made if it's Transformers, if it's G.I. Joe, if it's something 90s. I personally would kill, like I said, for an anime, give me a Naruto, give me a DBZ, you know, give me a One Piece, give me something like that. I would just be, you know, fry in the meme, you know. But that's it. The question is just what's it going to entail? But if you're even interested at all, you should be aware that this one could be making a much bigger splash than the last couple, and, you know, again, budget accordingly. Now you always just get the core pledge in the actual fund campaign, but then afterwards you do the add-on, so you can kind of split it up if you're like me. Anyway, but that's what you should know, and that's why it's of interest. Now, we're going back sort of full circle. We are going back to the feudal Japan, only we are going with a completely different aesthetic, where Sankokushin is this beautiful, artsy, flowery, very finesse. This is Harakiri. This is dark, gruesome, deep. Now, this is a dungeon crawl. This is a dungeon crawl with depth, where you are post-samurai era. The emperor is down. The dark shogun has taken over, and you are trying as a hero to unravel the mystery and the power of the dark shogun. And you're going to be traveling around, upgrading your character, using the skill tree in many, many, many different ways, it seems like, in order to customize them to fight against these forces of evil. And it is going to be grid-based here. They have a few of the maps up here you can kind of see in terms of how you're going to be utilizing them. And again, the question is something like this: is with the dungeon crawl aspect, with some of the other more recent iterations and innovations in this genre, how is it going to be apart from just the hack and slash roll and move-esque sort of thing? Now, obviously, the character customization when it comes to these guys is going to be massive, but how much of it is going to affect, you know, one side and the other? How much can you move? Is there going to be terrain here? You can see it sort of broken down into the buildings in these areas. How much of that side of things are going to actually matter? Those are the aspects that we've seen, especially with the more recent Monster Hunter or Primal, that have set them apart. And so is Harakiri going to do something similar? Again, there's very little information out. Now, again, I've been in contact with Synergic Games. There's very little information out, but they're getting closer to the point that they may be announcing a date sometime in the next month or so. So we'll have a little bit more time to prepare and a little bit more information as it gets closer to that date. Now, they say there's going to be a heavy narrative component to it as well, from one of the top Spanish fiction writers, I think Velasco. And so we're going to see what that entails. And they say, okay, well, even the combat itself is going to have layers on layers. Now, the more powerful a skill is, the harder it may be to use again in battle. There's going to be, as they say, yin and yang dice that are going to have to be matched up in order to do certain of these powers. And it's going to give you an own character customization board in order to sort of bling out your character in the way you chose. So all in all, again, it's going to be super interesting to see, but it's going to be super critical too, because it's got to bring something new and innovative. Otherwise, I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there in this genre and mechanically dungeon crawler style of things already. So I expect big, and I'm hoping to see big, but we'll see whenever we, get a date as well. So the fifth of these games, the fifth of 5 here. And let me be clear, this is not last, but, it's definitely not least. This is Kingdoms Forlorn. And you may be going, okay, Into the Unknown, Kingdom Forlorn. Do I know them? Do I know them from somewhere? Yes, you do. Now, you know them from Aeon Trespass Odyssey as the people who put that game out, who raised $1 million for that as a relative unknown, sort of the KDM-esque style of things with an inverted campaign battling system that they have gone to instead of, things getting easier as the battle goes on, potentially ramping it up. And again, looking at the KDM side of things, again, as a price point, but also a scope. And this is an epic 1 to 4 player massive campaign exploration game, fully cooperative, choice-driven board game that they say. Miniatures are amazing. Tons and tons of things going on there. Just absolutely looking fantastic. They have tabletop simulator stuff out there all over the place that you can try. And that exposure has really been positive, and people have been really clamoring for it. Now, I think we're going to see it sometime mid-2022. And if it delivers, well, now let's go back to Kingdom Forlorn. This is the next in their line of things, but as they say on their official website for Kingdom Forlorn, which they have just put out 3 articles in the last 6 or so weeks, about what Kingdoms Forlorn is, because there was a little bit of information leaking out for a long time of this was the rumor of the next project and when was it going to be, but they've really said, we're going to finish Aeon Trespass Odyssey first before we get you into the other game. We want to make sure this one gets as much of full attention as we can and not neglect it, so you know that we're solid from that side of things. And again, tons and tons of stuff. And if you weren't familiar with this one, I highly suggest you check it out. Now you can see I pledged $1. I went all in the pledge manager, just so you know. So that is where my side of things is at. So now let's go back to Kingdoms Forlorn for a second, because you've got some amazing looking artwork, and they have 3 articles published on their website talking a little bit about it. And so this first one gives you sort of the scope of things. Tactical dungeon crawler, cooperative, narrative driven. And you may go, okay, you've heard all of those and they say the same thing, but we want to tell you why this is different. Why should you get this as another high-end big box saga giving hundreds of hours of gameplay? Hundreds of unique illustrations, the dynamic miniatures, okay, premium comments, and storytelling. We've heard all of this. What is it about? Dragons, Deverly, Mad Kings, Forgotten Kingdoms, Knights, Vile, and Noble. And, I mean, this reminds me more of like Tainted Grail, the dungeon crawl narrative, instead of Tainted Grail, the Seventh Continent adventure, if you will. So they have a couple words that they're using as buzzwords here. They're modified tactical battle systems that they've been using. And they talk about this game has actually been in development longer than Aeon Trespass Odyssey. And so this one has been fostered and nurtured for quite some time. So hopefully we will have closer to a finished product when it actually comes to campaign than the wait for Aeon Trespass Odyssey. So what are you going to get? Okay, fight battles, loot, all the usual stuff. But, okay, highly modular, hard co-op, forcing you to work together, shared adventures, individual stakes, personalized stories, build your knight from the ground up, with everything from leveling, gear crafting, looting, and story decisions with lasting impact. And look at those frickin' miniatures. Those are frickin' awesome. And, anyway, forkin' awesome. We should go with that. So, give you a little bit more background. That's about it. And then they go into this article about what they're going to be doing a little bit differently in the concept of their dungeon crawl as opposed to others. So you're going to be going into the unknown, it says, whether it's catacombs, dungeons, castles, or jungles, epic quests. So they're really putting it more on the epic to grand scale, whether you're playing solo or 1 to 4 players. So this just looks encapsulatingly intoxicating, if you will, from someone who loves this but also cannot get these played enough as well. So it's really, really interesting, because they even talk about the fact that, hey, if you get in some of these other games, you can roll 3 turns in a row of doing nothing. But in this, more mechanics that record critical thinking and clever plays with a touch of unpredictability. So it's not going to be just a pure dice chucker where you can kind of get SOL from it. Strong luck mitigation involving co-op mechanics. I mean, your tale's also going to come to the end, but there's going to be end game, there's going to be post game, there's going to be new missions, new levels. and there's just going to be a ton of customization. So then they talk about the third article here that delves a little bit more into the other side of things. And this is just more of an intro about what the tactical combat is and what it's going to look like and just how you're going to be able to use these decks either for the AI or for the, you know, the monsters or whatever else it may be, as well as when you're dungeon crawling. So again, just a lot of information, and there's going to be more as it slowly trickles out. But again, you can see why I'm super excited by this, because this looks like everything that I hope for in a nutshell in a game like this. And it just looks freaking amazing. So I can't wait to get more information. I'd love to be able to get a hands-on with any of these or all of these, but we'll kind of see as time gets closer, just like with all the other ones. But I would anticipate campaign being like sometime, you know, mid 2022 at this point, because again, I don't think they're going to be delivering before Aeon Trespass. Again, I don't think they're going to be launching before the delivery of Aeon Trespass Odyssey. And if you go back over here to the Kickstarter campaign page, in the latest update from the end of September, just over a month ago, it says that they're still projecting for a Q1 2020 release. So if that's the case, again, I think you're going to see not a very short turnaround in terms of the campaign to strike while the iron is hot, but I think you're probably going to see it within a couple months, 3-4 months. And so that's what I would see, especially from Wave 1. So there you go. That's it. Okay, those are the 5 big ones you need to know about. Those are the 5 budget busters that are going to come to crowdfunding in the near future. Now, there's obviously a couple more that I kind of overlooked that easily could have made this list larger, but I wanted to keep it small and compact for you guys and give it to you in bite-sized components so you can digest it and regurgitate it and tell me what you like or what you don't like. So there you go. Those are super hyped for all me, you know. But we'll see when it actually launches, how that changes and what happens between here and there. But yeah. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for clicking. Thanks you for viewing. And if you like that, just throw me a sub and we'll see where we can go with this thing. Stay classy. Have a great day. I'll see you around.